Margot Jensen stared at the radar screen, rubbing her tired eyes. 9 hours into a 12-hour shift at Denver International Airport's control tower, and something felt off. Not wrong, just different. The blips on her screen moved in familiar patterns, but occasionally seemed to flicker or shift slightly before correcting themselves. "Hey Torres, you seeing this?" she asked, gesturing to her screen. Marcus Torres leaned over, his coffee breath making Margot wince. "Seeing what?" "These flight paths. They're twitching." Torres squinted at the screen. "Looks normal to me. Maybe you need glasses," he said with a smirk. "Or maybe just sleep." Margot frowned. She'd been an air traffic controller for 7 years, with the best performance record in the department. She knew what she was seeing. "Whatever," she muttered, making a note in her log. 3 more hours crawled by. The anomalies persisted. Tiny jerks in otherwise smooth flight tracks. Momentary duplications of aircraft signals that vanished when she blinked. Nothing catastrophic, nothing that affected her ability to direct traffic, but definitely there. When her shift ended at 6 a.m., Margot didn't go straight home. Instead, she went to the data center and pulled up the night's recordings. Playing them back at normal speed showed nothing unusual. But when she slowed them down to quarter speed and watched carefully, she saw it. Micro stutters in the data feed, like the system was glitching for milliseconds at a time. "You're still here?" Margot jumped. It was Diane Winters, her supervisor, looking confused. "Just checking something," Margot said, quickly closing the playback. "Go home, Jensen. You look like crap." "Thanks," Margot said dryly. "Always nice to hear." The strange patterns continued over the next 3 days. Each shift, Margot documented more instances, building a record that something was happening. On the 4th day, she approached Diane with her evidence. "Look at this," she said, showing Diane her tablet. "These aren't random glitches. There's a pattern." Diane's expression shifted from annoyed to concerned as she scrolled through Margot's data. "Have you shown this to IT?" "Not yet. I wanted your take first. Send everything to Ray Patel in Systems. Copy me, and keep this between us for now." Margot nodded, feeling a mix of validation and unease. That night, she couldn't sleep. Her apartment felt too quiet, too still. Around 3 a.m., she gave up and made coffee, then sat on her tiny balcony overlooking downtown Denver. The city lights shimmered against the night sky, beautiful in their predictable patterns. Until they weren't. Margot blinked, certain she was just tired. But no, there it was again. A ripple in the light patterns, like someone had dropped a stone into a pond of electricity. She grabbed her phone and recorded it, watching as the city lights briefly pulsed in a wave formation before settling back to normal. Her phone buzzed with a text from Diane. "Meeting with Systems at 7 a.m. Be there." Ray Patel from IT looked like he hadn't slept in days, his eyes red-rimmed behind thick glasses. "Your flight path anomalies aren't isolated," he said without preamble. "We're seeing similar patterns across multiple systems, weather feeds, ground transport monitoring, even the damn coffee machines." "What's causing it?" Diane asked. Ray shook his head. "Still working on that, but here's where it gets weird. The patterns match disturbances we'd expect from specific types of interference, but nothing's showing up on our sensors." "Meaning?" Margot prompted. "Meaning something's affecting our digital systems without leaving a physical trace. That's..." Ray trailed off. "Concerning," Diane finished for him. "More than concerning," Ray said. "We've contacted other facilities discreetly. Same things happening in Seattle, Chicago, and Salt Lake City. Started about 2 weeks ago, barely noticeable but escalating." Margot thought about the light patterns she'd seen. "It's not just digital systems," she said, pulling up the video on her phone. "I saw this last night." They watched in silence as the city lights rippled unnaturally. "That's not possible," Ray whispered, Tell that to my eyes, Margot replied. After the meeting, Margot stopped at a grocery store on her way home. As she browsed the produce section, she noticed a woman staring intensely at a display of apples, her hand frozen in mid-reach. "Excuse me, are you okay?" Margot asked. The woman didn't respond. She just stood there, utterly still, eyes fixed on the fruit. Then, as suddenly as a switch being flipped, she grabbed an apple and turned to Margot with a normal smile. "Did you say something?" she asked pleasantly. No," Margot lied, unnerved. "Sorry." In the checkout line, Margot noticed more oddities. A cashier who repeated the same greeting to 3 customers in a row, using identical words and gestures. A child who briefly walked backward before continuing forward as if nothing had happened. By the time she got home, Margot felt like she was losing her mind. She double-locked her door and sank onto her couch, trying to make sense of what she was seeing. Her phone rang, startling her. It was Ray. "Turn on your TV," he said without greeting. "Channel 9. Margot did as instructed. The local news was showing footage of a press conference with city officials discussing water quality. "What am I looking for?" she asked. "Just watch." The mayor was speaking about routine testing when the image briefly changed. For a split second, the mayor's face was replaced by a geometric pattern of lines and dots before returning to normal. No one on the broadcast seemed to notice. "Did you see that?" Ray asked, his voice tight. "Yeah," Margot whispered. "What the hell was that?" "Don't know, but it's happening on all channels, all broadcasts. And Margot, no one else sees it. I've asked around. People think I'm crazy." "You're not crazy," Margot said, but her voice lacked conviction. "Look, maybe we should talk to someone outside the airport, someone who might know about this kind of thing." "Like who? The government? The media? They'll think we're nuts." "I have a friend at CU Denver. She's a neurologist, Dr. Anna Kim. Maybe she can help us figure out if we're hallucinating." "Fine. But be careful who you talk to. And Margot? Yeah? Don't drink the tap water. Just don't." Dr. Anna Kim looked skeptical as Margot explained what she'd been seeing. "So you believe there's some kind of visual disturbance affecting digital displays and possibly physical reality?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. "I know how it sounds," Margot admitted. "But Ray sees it too. And now others at the airport are starting to notice." Anna leaned back in her chair, considering. "Have you had your vision checked recently? Any headaches, dizziness, other symptoms?" "No," Margot said firmly. "I'm not sick. This is real." Shared delusions aren't unheard of, especially among people in high-stress jobs who work closely together. "It's not a delusion." Margot pulled out her phone. "Look, I recorded it." She pulled up the video of the rippling city lights and handed the phone to Anna. The neurologist watched it carefully, her expression unchanging. "What do you see?" Margot asked nervously. "Normal city lights," Anna said, handing the phone back. "Nothing unusual." Margot stared at her in disbelief, then looked at her own phone. The ripple effect was clearly visible just as she'd recorded it. "That's not possible," Margot muttered. "It's right there." Anna's expression softened with concern. "Let me run some basic tests, okay? Just to rule things out." Reluctantly, Margot agreed to a series of cognitive and neurological exams. Everything came back normal. "Physically, you're fine," Anna concluded, "but stress can manifest in unusual ways. Maybe take some time off work." "I'm not stressed, I'm not crazy, and I'm not imagining things," Margot insisted, rising to leave. "Thanks for your time." "Wait," Anna called as Margot reached the door. "There is one thing. We've had an unusual number of patients reporting visual disturbances lately. Nothing in their scans, nothing physically wrong. Most of them work in tech or communications." Margot turned back. "And And I thought it was some kind of occupational stress syndrome. But maybe there's something else going on. Like what? Anna hesitated. I don't know, but I'm willing to keep an open mind. Back at her apartment, Margot found Ray waiting outside her door, looking agitated. We need to talk, he said, pushing past her into the apartment. Things are getting worse. What happened? The anomalies are spreading, and I think I figured out why no one else can see our recordings. He pulled out his own phone. I took this video of a traffic light glitching. Watch. Margot saw a normal traffic light in the video. I don't see anything wrong, she said. Exactly. But I can see it glitching when I look at my own video. Just like you can see your light ripples, but Anna couldn't. How is that possible? I think whatever we're seeing affects how our brains process visual information. Once our brains have been, calibrated? To see these anomalies, we see them everywhere, in reality and in recordings we make. But others don't, because their brains filter it out. Margot sank onto her couch. That doesn't make sense. What could cause something like that? I have a theory, Ray said, his voice dropping. Have you noticed the water tastes different lately? I don't think so, but honestly, I usually drink coffee. Denver changed water treatment facilities 3 weeks ago, right before this all started. You think there's something in the water? I bought a high-end testing kit, found trace amounts of a compound I couldn't identify. Ray pulled a vial from his pocket. This is tap water from my apartment. Margot took it, examining the clear liquid. Looks normal. Yeah, well, looks can be deceiving. I've been doing research. There are experimental compounds that can affect neural pathways, change how the brain processes sensory input. Military stuff, mostly classified. So you think we've been drugged? By the city water supply? That's a big leap, Ray. Is it? Think about it. The government has a history of secret tests on civilians. MK Ultra, Tuskegee, countless others. Margot shook her head. Let's not jump to conspiracy theories. There could be a simpler explanation. Like what? Before she could answer, both their phones buzzed simultaneously. It was an emergency alert. Emergency alert. Denver Water Authority advisory. Routine testing has detected trace contaminants in the municipal water supply. As a precautionary measure, residents are advised to avoid consuming tap water until further notice. Updates will follow. They stared at their phones, then at each other. Just a coincidence, right? Margot said weakly. Ray's face was grim. I don't believe in coincidences. By evening, the city was in mild chaos. Grocery stores were mobbed, bottled water selling out within hours. News channels broadcast reassurances from officials that the contamination was minor and posed no health risks. Margot and Ray watched from her apartment as people lined up at water distribution points set up across the city. From her window, the scene looked almost normal. Almost. There, Ray pointed. See that? Across the street, a woman had stopped mid-stride, not pausing, not slowing down, completely frozen like a statue while people walked around her, seemingly unaware. After 10 seconds, the woman continued walking as if nothing had happened. It's getting worse, Margot whispered. Ray nodded. And more frequent. I've been keeping track. The anomalies are increasing exponentially. Margot's phone rang. It was Anna. Are you seeing this? Anna's voice was tight with fear. The people freezing? The objects flickering? You can see it now? Margot asked, feeling both validated and terrified. Yes, God, yes, it started about 3 hours ago. I thought I was losing my mind until I remembered what you showed me. Margot, what's happening? We think it's something in the water. Some kind of compound affecting neural pathways. That actually makes sense, Anna said slowly. I've been reading case studies about compounds that can alter perception. None of them match exactly what we're seeing, but theoretically, it's possible. We need to know what we're dealing with, Margot said. Can you help us? I can try. I have access to advanced testing equipment at the hospital. Bring me your samples. The hospital was busier than usual when they arrived. Margot noticed several patients exhibiting odd behaviors, staring at walls, making repetitive gestures, speaking in fragmented sentences. Anna met them in her office, looking exhausted. It's getting bad. We've had 30 admissions in the last 2 hours, all with similar symptoms. Visual and auditory disturbances, brief catatonic episodes, disorientation. All from drinking the water? Ray asked. That's our working theory. But here's the weird part. The symptoms aren't consistent with any known neurotoxin or hallucinogen. It's like their brains are being recalibrated. Recalibrated for what? Margot asked. Anna shook her head. I don't know. Let me test your samples. They waited while Anna ran tests in the lab. Margot paced nervously, watching the increasing flow of patients into the emergency department. Ray sat hunched over his laptop, monitoring news feeds. Officials are still downplaying this, he reported, calling it minor contamination with temporary effects. They're lying, Margot said flatly. Of course they are. Question is, do they know what's really happening? Anna returned an hour later, her face pale. I found something, but it doesn't make sense. What is it? Margot asked. The water contains trace amounts of a compound similar to DMT, a powerful hallucinogen, but modified. It's synthetic, engineered. The molecular structure suggests it could cross the blood-brain barrier easily and bind to serotonin receptors, but in a very specific way. Meaning? Ray pressed. Meaning it wouldn't cause random hallucinations. It would create very specific perceptual changes, targeted ones, like someone designed it to make people see certain things. Margot felt a chill. Or designed it to remove a filter that was already there. They looked at her. What if, she continued slowly, what we're seeing is what's actually real? What if this compound isn't making us hallucinate? It's making us see through a hallucination we've always lived with. The thought hung in the air between them, too terrifying to fully contemplate. That doesn't... Anna struggled to find words. Makes as much sense as anything else right now, Ray said grimly. Margot's phone buzzed with another emergency alert. Update: Denver Water Authority. Further testing indicates no health risk from reported contaminants. Previous advisory was issued in error. Water is safe for all uses. Disregard previous warning. They're covering it up, Ray whispered. We need to warn people, Margot said. How? The authorities are saying everything's fine. The media will think we're crazy, and half the city has already consumed the water. Margot thought for a moment. The airport. I can access the emergency broadcast system. Send out a real warning. That's federal property, Anna warned. You'd be breaking a dozen laws. I don't care. People need to know what's happening. Ray nodded slowly. I can help you get into the system. But Margot, if we do this, there's no going back. I know. Margot stood up, her decision made. Let's go. As they left the hospital, none of them noticed the security cameras tracking their movement, or the fact that every single screen in the building briefly displayed the same geometric pattern at exactly the same moment. Outside, the sky above Denver looked normal to most residents. But to Margot, Ray, Anna, and an increasing number of others, it was beginning to ripple like the surface of a disturbed pond, revealing brief glimpses of something else behind it, something that had perhaps been there all along. The drive to Denver International Airport was a nightmare. Traffic moved in strange bursts, flowing normally for minutes, then freezing completely before resuming as if nothing had happened. Margot gripped the steering wheel, trying to focus on the road while ignoring the increasingly frequent anomalies in her vision. Look at the sky, Ray murmured from the passenger seat. Margot risked a glance upward. The clouds were wrong, not just moving strangely. but occasionally revealing what looked like seams, as if the sky were a poorly constructed backdrop. "Don't look too long," Anna warned from the back seat. "I've noticed the visual disturbances get worse if you focus on them, like they're responsive to attention." Margot nodded and returned her eyes to the road. "We're almost there." The airport loomed ahead, its distinctive white peaks still looking mostly normal against the disturbed sky. Margot used her security badge to access the employee parking area, which was oddly empty for midday. "Where is everyone?" Ray asked as they hurried toward the terminal. "Maybe they're seeing it too," Anna suggested. "Staying home." Inside, the airport was in a state of controlled chaos. Flights were still departing and arriving, but delays were mounting. Staff moved with stiff, awkward motions, and many travelers seemed disoriented, stopping mid-stride or staring blankly at nothing. "Security checkpoint is going to be a problem," Margot said, noting the TSA agents ahead. "I can get through with my ID, but you two..." "We'll figure something out," Ray said. "You get to the control tower. We'll meet you there." Margot hesitated, then nodded. "Be careful." She made her way through security, flashing her badge. The TSA agent barely looked at it, his eyes unfocused. As she passed through the metal detector, it beeped loudly despite Margot having nothing metal on her. The agents didn't react at all. The journey to the control tower was equally strange. Twice, Margot encountered groups of people completely frozen in place, like mannequins arranged in a display. She weaved around them, fighting the urge to run. The elevator to the tower seemed to take forever, the numbers on the display occasionally jumping backward before continuing their ascent. When the doors finally opened, Margot stepped into a control room that should have been bustling with activity. Instead, only 3 controllers were at their stations, all staring at their screens with unnatural stillness. "Hello?" Margot called out. No response. She approached her usual station, where a controller named Jeff sat motionless, his eyes fixed on the radar screen. "Jeff?" Margot touched his shoulder gently. He turned to her with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Margot, not your shift." "Emergency," she said carefully. "I need to check something on the system." Jeff nodded and returned to staring at his screen. Margot noticed he wasn't actually doing anything, just staring, while the radar showed multiple aircraft in holding patterns. She slipped into an empty station and logged in. The system accepted her credentials, but the display was worse than ever. Flight paths jagged and broken, aircraft identifiers flickering between numbers and strange symbols. Somehow, flights were still landing and taking off. Margot glanced out the window and saw a plane touching down smoothly, despite the chaos on her screen. The disconnect was jarring. Her phone buzzed with a text from Ray. "Stuck at security. They're not letting anyone through without special clearance." Plan B? Margot thought quickly. If she couldn't get Ray's help to access the emergency broadcast system, she'd have to find another way to warn people. She opened the airport's internal communication system and began composing a message to be displayed on all terminal screens. Before she could finish, a hand clamped down on her wrist. "That's not authorized, Jensen." It was Diane Winters, her supervisor, looking perfectly normal and completely alert, too alert compared to everyone else. "Diane," Margot said, surprised. "You can see it too, can't you? The glitches, the people freezing?" Diane's expression didn't change. "I don't know what you're talking about, but I do know you're not scheduled today, and you're attempting to access systems without authorization. People need to know what's happening," Margot insisted. "There's something in the water. It's changing how we perceive reality." "There's nothing wrong with the water," Diane said firmly. "The advisory was issued in error, as the update clearly stated." Her grip on Margot's wrist tightened painfully. "You should go home, Jensen. Get some rest." Margot stared at her supervisor, suddenly understanding. "You know about this. You've known all along. Diane's face remained impassive. Security will escort you out. Two security guards appeared behind her, moving with the same strange stiffness Margot had observed in others. But their eyes were clear and focused, just like Diane's. They're not affected, Margot realized aloud. Why aren't you affected? Ms. Jensen is experiencing a stress reaction, Diane told the guards, ignoring Margot's question. Please remove her from the premises. As the guards took her arms, Margot's phone buzzed again. It was a message from Anna. Found something big. Water contamination is intentional. Need to meet ASAP. Margot allowed herself to be let out, knowing resistance would only make things worse. In the elevator down, she noticed both guards occasionally glanced at their watches in perfect synchronization. Nice watches, she commented, trying to sound casual. Neither responded. Are they special? Government issue? One guard finally spoke, his voice flat. They help us stay on schedule. In the main terminal, they released her with a warning not to return without authorization. Margot waited until they left, then texted Ray and Anna to meet her at the airport Starbucks. Anna arrived first, looking frazzled but excited. I went back to the hospital after you dropped me off. Accessed some files I probably shouldn't have. What did you find? Margot asked, keeping her voice low. The water contamination isn't accidental. There are internal memos discussing Project Clear Vision dating back 6 months. It was planned. By who? Unclear. Government agency, maybe private contractor. The point is, they knew exactly what they were putting in the water and why. Ray appeared, sliding into the seat beside them. We've got a bigger problem. Flight control systems are failing at airports across the country. Same pattern. Digital glitches escalating into full system failures. It's spreading, Margot said. Beyond Denver? Anna asked. Ray nodded grimly. Reports of similar incidents in at least 6 major cities, always starting with digital anomalies, then progressing to people experiencing temporary fugue states. That's the official terminology. What about the watches? Margot asked, thinking of the guards. What watches? Ray looked confused. The security guards who kicked me out. They had matching watches they kept checking. Said they help stay on schedule. Anna frowned. That could explain why some people seem unaffected. Maybe the watches counteract the compound somehow. Or they're part of it, Ray suggested. A control mechanism. Their speculation was interrupted by every screen in the terminal, suddenly displaying the same message. Nationwide emergency alert. Due to unprecedented system failures across multiple critical infrastructure networks, the Department of Homeland Security has declared a Level 1 emergency. All citizens are advised to 1. Remain in their current location. 2. Avoid all unnecessary travel. 3. Limit water and food consumption to approved sources. 4. Await further instructions. This is not a test. The alert was followed by a brief flash of the same geometric pattern Margot had seen on the TV earlier. It's happening, Ray whispered. Whatever this is, it's going national. People throughout the terminal reacted with varying degrees of concern, some immediately calling loved ones, others simply staring at the screens with blank expressions. We need to get out of here, Anna said urgently. Somewhere safe to figure this out. My cabin, Margot suggested. In the mountains, it has a well for water, solar power. We can regroup there. Ray nodded. Let's go before they lock down the city. As they hurried toward the exit, Margot noticed more people displaying strange behaviors, walking in perfectly straight lines, turning at exact right angles, stopping and starting in unison like a choreographed dance. Outside, the sky looked even worse. The seams Anna had noticed earlier were more pronounced, and occasionally the entire visual field seemed to flicker, like reality itself was buffering. They reached Margot's car just as another wave of stillness swept through the parking lot. Every person around them froze in place, not just paused, but completely static, like statues. "Drive," Ray urged. "Now, before it happens to us." Margot started the engine and pulled out, carefully navigating around the frozen figures. "Why aren't we freezing like them?" "Maybe it affects different people at different rates," Anna theorized. "Or maybe because we were among the first to see the anomalies, our brains have adapted somewhat." As they reached the highway, the frozen people behind them suddenly animated again, continuing their activities as if nothing had happened. "They don't even realize they're stopping," Anna observed. "Their perception of time must be affected too." The drive to Margot's cabin took 3 tense hours. The anomalies grew more frequent and pronounced as they traveled, making Margot question whether she was actually seeing the road correctly. Twice they had to stop when Margot herself experienced brief moments of disconnection, seconds where her consciousness seemed to float free of her body before snapping back into place. "It's affecting us too," she admitted after the second episode. "Just differently." "We need to figure out what this compound is and how to counteract it," Anna said. "And more importantly, what it's actually doing to people." The cabin was mercifully normal looking when they arrived. A small wooden structure nestled among pine trees, isolated from the chaos unfolding in the city. Margot led them inside and immediately turned on her emergency radio. Static greeted them, interspersed with fragments of emergency broadcasts. "Stay in your homes. Reports of mass hallucinations. Remain calm." Ray set up his laptop, connecting to the satellite internet. Still working, surprisingly. But most news sites are down. Social media is going crazy, though. Reports of the same phenomena nationwide. Anna inspected the well water. "This should be clean, assuming the compound isn't airborne." "If it was airborne, everyone would be affected the same way," Margot reasoned. "The fact that some people show symptoms and others don't suggests it's in the water supply." They spent the evening gathering information, piecing together what was happening across the country. The pattern was consistent: water supply contamination followed by escalating perceptual anomalies, then coordinated emergency alerts minimizing the situation. "It's a mass control operation," Ray concluded, showing them patterns he'd identified in the emergency broadcasts. These alerts contain embedded visual triggers that seem to increase susceptibility to the hallucinations. "Or decrease resistance to whatever is really happening," Margot countered. Anna had been quiet, reading scientific papers on her tablet. "I think I understand what the compound is doing," she said finally. "It's not just a hallucinogen. It's reconfiguring neural pathways related to pattern recognition." "In English, please," Ray said. "Our brains are constantly filtering information, creating a consistent model of reality. This compound seems to disrupt that process, allowing us to see things our brains would normally filter out." "Like glitches in a simulation," Margot suggested. Anna looked uncomfortable with the comparison. "I wouldn't go that far. But it does suggest our normal perception might be more limited than we realize." "So what are we actually seeing?" Ray asked. "When people freeze, when the sky shows seams, when digital systems glitch, what is that?" "I don't know," Anna admitted. "But I have a theory about the watches. Based on their description, they might be generating a specific electromagnetic frequency that stabilizes the neural disruption." "So they're like anchors to normal reality," Margot said. "Possibly, or anchors to whatever version of reality someone wants us to perceive." The radio crackled to life with another emergency broadcast. "This is an important message from the Department of Homeland Security. The nationwide system disruptions are the result of a coordinated foreign cyber attack. Specialized teams are working to restore normal operations. For your safety, please follow these guidelines." The voice listed instructions similar to the previous alert, with one addition. "Report any individuals exhibiting erratic behavior or spreading misinformation about the nature of this emergency to local authorities immediately." "They're looking for people like us," Ray said quietly. "People who can see what's really happening." Margot switched off the radio. "So what do we do?" Hide up here while whatever this is takes over completely. We need more information, Anna said, and we need a way to counteract the compound's effects. Or replicate them, Margot suggested. If the compound lets us see through some kind of filter, maybe we need to help others see too. Ray was back at his laptop. Wait, look at this. He turned the screen to show them a message board where users were reporting similar experiences worldwide. One post stood out. The frequency matters. 40 Hz cancels the effect. 16 Hz enhances it. Engineers will understand. Spread the word before they shut this down. Frequencies, Anna muttered. That matches my theory about the watches. They could be generating a 40 Hz signal. Can we build something that generates the opposite frequency? Margot asked. Something that would help people see what we're seeing? Ray thought for a moment. Maybe, but we'd need specific equipment. I have an old ham radio setup in the storage shed, Margot said. Would that help? It's a start. By dawn, they had converted Margot's radio equipment into a crude frequency generator. Ray set it to 16 Hz based on the anonymous post. If this works, it should enhance what we're already seeing, he explained. Give us a clearer picture of what's happening. And if it makes things worse? Anna asked nervously. Then we turn it off. Ray activated the device. At first, nothing seemed to happen. Then, slowly, the walls of the cabin began to lose their solidity, becoming semi-transparent. Holy shit, Margot breathed, staring at the forest visible through what had been solid wood a moment before. Don't panic, Anna said, though her voice shook. Remember, we're enhancing the effect of the compound. This isn't necessarily real either. As they watched, the forest beyond the cabin walls seemed to flicker, trees appearing and disappearing, replaced by glimpses of something else. Geometric patterns, lines of code, structures that made no visual sense. Turn it off, Margot said suddenly. This isn't helping. Ray switched off the device, and the cabin walls solidified again. They sat in stunned silence, trying to process what they'd seen. What if? Anna started, then hesitated. What if our reality is some kind of construction? A consensus hallucination maintained by our brains filtering out the actual nature of existence. And this compound breaks the filter, Margot concluded. Shows us things we're not supposed to see. But why? Ray asked. Why would someone deliberately expose an entire population to this? Before anyone could answer, Margot's phone buzzed with another emergency alert. Emergency directive. Phase 2. All citizens must tune to emergency broadcast channel immediately for crucial visual and audio calibration. Compliance is mandatory. Non-compliance will result in severe perceptual dysregulation. They're accelerating whatever this is, Margot said, trying to force everyone to see the same way. Or not see, Ray countered. Anna was staring out the window. Guys, we have company. Through the trees, they could see vehicles approaching. Black SUVs moving with perfect coordination up the rough mountain road. How did they find us? Margot asked. Your phone, Ray realized. The emergency alerts. They're tracking who receives them. We need to go. Now. Margot grabbed her emergency pack. There's a hiking trail out back that leads deeper into the mountains. They slipped out the rear door just as the vehicles pulled up to the cabin. From their hiding spot among the trees, they watched men in black uniforms exit the SUVs. All wore identical watches. They'll figure out we ran soon enough, Ray whispered. We need a plan. The frequency, Anna said suddenly. If 40 Hz stabilizes perception and 16 Hz enhances the compound's effects. We can use it against them, Margot finished. Ray, can you modify your device to broadcast at 16 Hz, strong enough to reach them? Maybe, but we'd need to get closer. Worth the risk, Margot decided. If we can make them see what we're seeing, maybe they'll stop whatever this is. They circled back toward the cabin, staying hidden as Ray adjusted his device. When they were within 50 yards of the SUVs, he activated it at maximum power. The effect was immediate and dramatic. The uniformed men suddenly staggered, looking around wildly as if seeing the world for the first time. Several dropped to their knees, tearing off their watches in apparent horror. "It's working," Anna whispered. But their victory was short-lived. From the lead SUV emerged a figure different from the others, a woman in a gray suit who moved with fluid confidence despite the frequency broadcast. It was Diane Winters. She surveyed the scene calmly, then pulled something from her pocket, a small device that emitted a high-pitched tone. Immediately, her disoriented men began to recover, retrieving and reattaching their watches. "She's countering our frequency," Ray hissed. "We need to go, now." They retreated into the forest, moving as quickly and quietly as possible. Behind them, they could hear voices and the crackle of radios as the search began. "Head for the ridge," Margot directed. "There's an old mining system in these mountains. We can lose them there." As they climbed higher, the world around them continued to glitch and flicker independent of Ray's device. The sky overhead occasionally revealed those same unsettling seams, and twice they encountered animals frozen in mid-motion, like taxidermy displays placed in the forest. "It's getting worse," Anna observed. "Whatever they're doing, it's affecting everything now." They reached the old mine entrance by midday, slipping inside just as a helicopter appeared overhead. The tunnel was dark and cool, extending deep into the mountain. "How far does this go?" Ray asked, switching on his flashlight. "Miles," Margot replied. "These mountains are full of old silver mines. Some connect to natural cave systems." They moved deeper into the earth, the sounds of pursuit fading behind them. The mine tunnel was surprisingly well preserved, its support beams still solid after decades of abandonment. After nearly an hour of careful progress, they reached a large chamber where several tunnels converged. Old mining equipment lay scattered about, covered in dust. "We should rest," Anna suggested. "Figure out our next move." They sat on some crates, sharing water from Margot's pack. The quiet of the mine was disconcerting after the chaos above. "I've been thinking," Ray said finally, "about what we saw with the frequency generator. What if this isn't about controlling what people see? What if it's about controlling what they don't see?" "Meaning?" Margot prompted. "Maybe the compound isn't creating hallucinations. Maybe it's breaking a hallucination we've been living with our whole lives." "A filter," Anna nodded. "Something that's been hiding. What? The true nature of reality? Or something in reality," Ray suggested. "Something that's always been there, watching us, influencing us, but staying just out of sight." They fell silent, considering the implications. The idea that their entire understanding of existence might be based on a carefully maintained perceptual filter was too enormous to fully comprehend. "If that's true," Margot said slowly, "then whoever is behind this, Diane, the government, whoever, they already know. They've always known." "And the watches," Anna added. "They're not protection from the compound's effects. They're protection from seeing what's really there." A distant sound echoed down the tunnel. Voices, footsteps. The search parties had found the mine entrance. "We need to keep moving," Margot urged, standing. "Deeper in." They continued through the winding tunnels, the sounds of pursuit always just far enough behind to keep them moving. The deeper they went, the stranger the tunnels became, less like human excavations, and more like natural formations with oddly regular patterns. "These don't look like mining tunnels anymore," Ray noted, examining the smooth walls. "They're not," Margot admitted. "I've never been this far in before." They rounded a corner and stopped short. Before them, the tunnel opened into an enormous cavern, so vast their flashlights couldn't illuminate the far side. But what caused them to freeze wasn't the size. It was what filled the space. The cavern was occupied by structures that defied easy description, geometric shapes that seemed to fold in on themselves, surfaces that appeared solid from one angle and transparent from another. And throughout the space, patterns of light moved in coordinated sequences, like data transferring between nodes. "What is this place?" Anna whispered, her voice barely audible. Before anyone could answer, their flashlight beams caught movement, figures moving among the structures. Not human figures, but something else, something that seemed to shift between forms as they watched. "We shouldn't be seeing this," Ray murmured. "This is what the filter hides." A voice spoke from behind them. "Correct, Mr. Patel." They spun around to find Diane Winters standing there, flanked by two of her uniformed men. All wore the watches, but Diane's was larger, more complex. "Diane," Margot acknowledged, struggling to keep her voice steady. "What is this? What are those things?" "They've been here longer than us," Diane said simply. "This is their world. We just live in a small, carefully curated corner of it." "The hallucination," Anna realized. "Our normal reality. It's a construction, a safe zone." Diane nodded. "A negotiated space where humans can exist without perceiving what truly surrounds them. The filter is for our protection, our sanity." "And the compound in the water?" Ray demanded. "Why break the filter now?" "Not our choice," Diane said with a grimace. "The agreement is breaking down. They want to be perceived again, to be acknowledged. We've been fighting it, trying to maintain the filter through other means." "The emergency broadcasts," Margot guessed. "The watches. They're not causing hallucinations. They're trying to reinforce the filter." "Yes," Diane confirmed. "But it's failing. Too many people are seeing through now, which is why we need your help." "Our help?" Anna repeated incredulously. "You three were among the first to notice the glitches. Your brains adapted quickly, found patterns. You built a device that manipulates the perceptual frequencies. We need that knowledge." "To do what?" Margot asked, though she suspected she knew the answer. "To rebuild the filter, stronger than before." Diane gestured to the cavern behind them. "Unless you'd prefer this to be everyone's reality." Margot looked back at the impossible structures, the shifting entities moving among them. Entities that had now noticed their presence and were moving closer, curious, or perhaps hungry. "What happens to people's minds if the filter fails completely?" she asked quietly. "Mass psychosis at minimum," Diane replied. "Total societal collapse, more likely. And if we help you, things go back to normal. People forget what they've seen. The filter is strengthened." Ray shook his head. "You're asking us to help maintain a lie, to hide the truth about reality from everyone." "I'm asking you to help protect humanity from a truth it can't handle," Diane countered. "There's a reason the filter existed in the first place. We evolved with it, adapted to it. Removing it suddenly would be catastrophic." The entities were closer now, their forms shifting in ways that strained the mind to perceive. One reached out with an appendage that seemed to exist in multiple places simultaneously. Anna stepped back involuntarily. "Maybe she's right," she whispered. "This is too much, too fast." Margot stared at the approaching entities, then at Diane's impassive face. "If we help you, we want the truth. All of it. No more lies." "For you three?" "Agreed. But the rest must be protected." "And if the filter fails again? If they push harder next time?" Diane's expression hardened. "Then we'll need to find a more permanent solution." The implication hung in the air between them. Margot glanced at Ray and Anna, seeing the same calculation in their eyes. They had seen too much to go back to blissful ignorance, but forcing that same revelation on everyone at once would be cruel, possibly devastating. "We'll help," Margot decided. "For now." Diane nodded, relief briefly crossing her face. "Thank you. Now, we should leave this place." It's not safe to remain in direct contact with them for long. As they turned to go, Margot cast one last glance at the vast cavern and its inhabitants. One entity, larger than the others, seemed to meet her gaze across impossible distance. For a moment, Margot felt a connection, a flash of communication that bypassed language entirely. Soon, it seemed to say. Soon, everyone will see. The group retreated back through the tunnels, away from the structures and entities that existed beyond human perception. But Margot knew they couldn't unsee what they'd witnessed. The filter might be repaired for most, but for them, reality would never look quite the same again. And somewhere in the depths of the earth, ancient intelligences continued their patient work, eroding the barriers between their world and the fragile human illusion above. The emergency alerts might stop, the water might be cleaned, but the glimpse they'd been given suggested a deeper truth. The filter had always been temporary. Reality was just waiting to be seen.